Imagine you wake up tomorrow, you grab your phone, and you try to log into your bank account, but the password field is just gone. Like the underlying math that secures your money, your private messages, your whole digital identity, it hasn't just been hacked. It has essentially been solved by a machine. The very concept of a digital lock just, ceased to exist.
It sounds totally like science fiction, I know. But that exact scenario is currently keeping some of the smartest cryptographers in the world awake at night right now.
Yeah.
We're rapidly approaching this moment where the foundation of literally everything we do online could just evaporate.
And welcome to the deep dive. We are incredibly thrilled you're joining us today because we are looking at a world that is undergoing a massive, fragile transition.
Definitely.
And we've custom-tailored today's deep dive for you, drawing straight from an AI-curated digest of the global tech landscape on April 21st, 2026.
Yeah, and our materials today, they paint a really vivid picture of this transition. We're looking at legacy titans stepping down, new existential threats moving at literal machine speed.
Right.
And these huge structural shifts in how governments regulate our money. We're moving from a period where we built massive tech ecosystems to a period where we are, frankly, desperately trying to figure out how to defend them from entirely new categories of weapons.
It's a lot. But our mission is to distill this massive wave of information into clear, actionable insights so you can sort of see the matrix behind the headlines. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Starting with what is honestly the end of an absolute era in consumer tech. Tim Cook has officially stepped down as Apple CEO after 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, handing the reins over to John Ternus.
It's a completely monumental changing of the guard, To understand where tech is going, you really have to look at what Cook actually built. He didn't just babysit Steve Jobs' legacy, which I think a lot of people expected. He fundamentally re-engineered the company's DNA.
Yeah, like with Apple Silicon?
Exactly. Bringing processor design in-house completely upended the semiconductor industry because they could optimize the hardware and software together. Plus, he launched Vision Pro. But his true legacy really is the services business.
Well, let's talk about that services business for a second, because it feels like the hardware itself is almost becoming secondary to the ecosystem at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I look at this new promotion from Verizon that hit the wire today. They are actively offering a free iPad or an Apple Watch when you purchase a new iPhone. Why is a cellular carrier willingly eating a $300 or $400 loss on hardware?
Because, simply put, the hardware is a loss leader for the actual product, and the product is your perpetual subscription.
Right.
Think of it like the classic razor and blade model, or like a printer in its ink. Verizon will gladly give you the printer, which is the iPad.
Because they know you need the ink.
Exactly. The proprietary ink, the data plan, every single month. But, I mean, it goes deeper than just the data plan. When you have an iPhone, an iPad, and an Apple Watch, your switching costs become astronomically high.
Meaning, like, if I want to switch to Android, I don't just have to learn a new phone interface. I have to throw away my watch.
Yeah.
I lose my tablet integrations, and I just abandon all my purchased apps. The walls of the garden just get higher with every quote-unquote free device they hand you.
That is the ultimate goal of ecosystem lock-in. The individual device is basically just a toll booth to get you onto their highway.
But let me push back on this idea that everything must be an interconnected bundle, Because today we also saw Sennheiser launch their new HD 480 Pro closed-back headphones.
Oh, right.
And these aren't smart headphones. They don't have a voice assistant. They don't integrate with your smart home. They are hyper-focused, professional hardware designed strictly for audio mixing and monitoring.
Right, where total sound isolation is critical.
Exactly.
That counter trend is super fascinating to me. Because in the consumer space, value is defined by how well a device talks to everything else, right?
Right.
But in the professional space, value is defined by how well a device isolates you from everything else to just perform one specific task flawlessly.
Which makes me wonder, as these massive companies keep giving away hardware to trap us in their data plans, are we reaching a point where the ecosystem itself is the only product that matters for the average consumer?
For general consumers, absolutely. I mean, the moat protecting these trillion-dollar companies isn't the glass and aluminum in your pocket. It's the invisible web connecting your devices.
And the engine powering that invisible web right now is artificial intelligence.
Obviously, yeah.
Which really brings us to a glaring contradiction in the news today. On one hand, venture capitalists are incredibly bullish. We have a quote from A16's co-founder Mark Andreessen describing AI as, quote, the power of God's given away below cost.
That's quite a phrase.
It is. He's predicting an insane amount of consumer surplus.
Well, let's define what consumer surplus actually means in this context, right? It's an economic term for when you get significantly more value out of a product than what you actually paid for it.
Okay.
Because AI models are becoming fiercely competitive and incredibly cheap to run, capabilities that used to require a team of highly paid analysts, writing code, analyzing massive data sets, generating art.
Yeah.
Those are being handed to everyday users for literally pennies. It is massively deflationary.
I mean, I see the optimism there. You get a supercomputer assistant for the price of a cup of coffee.
Exactly.
But if AI gives the power of gods to a high school student trying to write an essay, it also gives that exact same power to a hacker trying to steal your data.
Unfortunately, yes.
And the breach at Vercel this week is just a terrifying case study in what that actually looks like.
Yeah, the Vercel incident is a massive wake-up call for the entire industry. It was an OOth supply chain attack.
Hold on, let's break that down for those who aren't software engineers. What exactly is an oath supply chain attack?
Okay, so think of OF like a digital VIP wristband at a concert. Instead of giving an app your actual password, you log in through Google or GitHub, and they issue a wristband.
An oath token.
Right, a token that tells the app who you are. Now, a supply chain attack means the hackers didn't actually attack Vercel directly. They attacked a vendor that Vercel trusted, a company called Context AI.
So they didn't kick down the front door at the bank. They compromised the guy who delivers the coffee to the bank manager.
That is a perfect way to look at it, yeah. The attackers compromised a Context AI employee's device using something called Luma Stealer malware.
Luma Stealer?
Yeah, and Luma Stealer basically acts like a digital vacuum cleaner. It just quietly scrapes up those VIP wristbands, those OAuth tokens, sitting on the computer.
And once they used those stolen tokens to get inside Vercel, the speed of the attack was what really stood out, right? Vercel's CEO came out and explicitly stated the attacker moved with, quote, surprising velocity, and that the attack was significantly accelerated by AI.
Right.
How exactly does AI make a hacker faster?
Well, traditionally, when a human hacker breaches a system, they have to do reconnaissance. They enter a massive corporate network, and they have to manually figure out where the valuable data is kept.
Poking around the dark.
Exactly. What servers they have access to, how to escalate their privileges. It takes a lot of time. But AI eliminates that manual discovery phase.
Wow.
Yeah, an AI agent can parse the entire system architecture in milliseconds. It instantly maps the network and locates the high-value targets.
So in this case, the target was environment variables. What are those, and why are they dangerous to lose?
So environment variables are essentially the configuration files that keep a software application running. Think of them like the master sticky notes on a developer's monitor.
Okay, that makes sense.
They often contain really sensitive information like API keys, database passwords, and server locations. Vercel stated that only non-sensitive environment variables were exposed this time.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, but the sheer speed of the extraction forced them to call in Mandiant, which is a top-tier incident response firm, and law enforcement.
And this acceleration is happening while our traditional defenses are honestly already crumbling. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, they just added 8 new actively exploited vulnerabilities to its catalog.
It's a huge deal.
We are looking at major flaws across Cisco SD-WAN, Papercut, TeamCity, Kentico, Zimbra, and a vulnerability in Quest KCE that actually received a CVSS score of 10.0.
Yeah, and for context, the CVSS score of 10.0 is the absolute maximum severity rating a vulnerability can receive.
The worst of the worst.
Literally. It essentially means there is a gaping hole in the software that requires no special privileges to exploit. And it can be triggered remotely by anyone on the internet.
Oh, wow.
It is the cybersecurity equivalent of leaving the bank vault wide open with a neon sign pointing at the cache. CISA is taking this so seriously they laid down incredibly strict federal deadlines. April 23rd to patch the Cisco flaws, and May 4th for the rest.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. When we talk about cybersecurity, we usually think of an arms race, right? Upgrading the vault doors while the robbers buy better drills. But AI isn't a better drill. It's like replacing human bank robbers with a pressurized, omnipresent gas that instantly finds every single microscopic crack in the building.
That's a terrifying visual, but accurate.
Right. So when you have federal agencies mandating patches by a specific date, but AI agents are exploiting flaws in milliseconds, can human-led patching cycles ever keep up?
The uncomfortable truth is no. I mean, the math of cybersecurity has always been asymmetrical. A defender has to patch 1,000 vulnerabilities across a sprawling network before an attack happens.
Right, you have to be right every time.
Exactly. An attacker only has to find one unpatched crack. When you introduce AI, the attacker can find that crack instantaneously. We're entering a paradigm where reactive defense, waiting for a patch to be released and then applying it, is fundamentally obsolete.
Which perfectly sets the stage for an industry where reactive defense has never been an option, because if you get hacked there, the money vanishes instantly.
Right.
Let's talk about digital finance and crypto. The stakes here are entirely existential, and we are seeing massive structural shifts in how the U.S. government is actually treating this space.
Yeah, that shift is really being led by the SEC. Paul Atkins, the current SEC chair, he recently went on CNBC to announce a major pivot in how the agency approaches digital assets.
Right.
They are moving away from the enforcement-first posture of previous administrations, and they're moving toward an approach focused on innovation. His stated goal is to advance, clarify, and transform crypto regulation.
And just a quick note for our listeners, as always, we are looking at this purely through an analytical lens based on our sources today. We aren't endorsing any specific regulatory viewpoints or political shifts, just tracking how this structural change in U.S. policy impacts the broader tech landscape.
Right. Strictly the structural impact.
Exactly. So as regulators take a step back to encourage innovation, the crypto networks themselves are being forced to evolve their own internal policing mechanisms.
Which is really interesting. The recent exploit involving Kelp DAO and the Arbitrum network is a prime example of this evolution.
What happened there?
Well, attackers found a vulnerability, but Arbitrum responded by instantly freezing a wallet containing over 30,000 ETH linked to the attack.
30,000 ETH. I mean, depending on market fluctuations, that's roughly $100 million just frozen in its tracks. But let me stop you there, though.
Sure.
Isn't the entire philosophical premise of blockchain that transactions are immutable? Like, code is law, nobody can freeze your money, and if you get hacked, it's just gone forever.
Well, that was the philosophy of Layer 1 blockchains, like the base Bitcoin or Ethereum networks.
Yeah.
But Arbitrum is a Layer 2 network.
Okay, what's the difference in practice?
Think of Layer 1 as a slow, highly secure cargo ship, and Layer 2 as a massive fleet of speedboats that process transactions quickly and then settle the final receipts back on the cargo ship.
I see.
Because Layer 2 networks control their own localized environments, they have the capability to act as an active defense layer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they can intervene and freeze assets before the attacker manages to cash out down to the base layer. They are effectively becoming their own private security force.
But even as they build out these multi-million-dollar defense mechanisms, there is a literal doomsday clock ticking in the background. And that brings us back to the scenario we started the show with. Quantum computing.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Quantum computing is basically the apex predator of cryptographic security.
And our sources show that the financial giants in the space aren't just waiting around for it to happen. Ripple just unveiled a comprehensive 4-phase plan to make the XRP ledger entirely quantum resistant by 2028.
Which is an aggressive timeline.
Very. And the most startling part of this plan is what they call the Q-Day readiness phase. It's basically a massive panic button.
Right.
Like, if quantum computers break encryption sooner than expected, they can force the entire network to migrate to quantum-safe accounts.
And we are seeing severe warnings that sooner than expected might be an understatement. A prominent research group called Sonic Labs just issued a highly technical alert.
What did they find?
They're arguing that most modern proof-of-stake blockchains are structurally vulnerable to quantum attacks right now.
Right now. Why proof of stake specifically? Our sources mention Sonic Labs pointed to something called BLS aggregation. I'm completely losing the thread on the math here. What kind of trick is BLS aggregation, and why does a quantum computer break it?
Okay, think of BLS aggregation like a massive digital petition. If a blockchain network needs 10,000 different computers to agree on a transaction, verifying 10,000 separate digital signatures would be incredibly slow.
It would just clog up the whole network.
Exactly. So BLS aggregation uses a complex mathematical formula to compress all 10,000 signatures into one single master signature. It proves that everyone agreed, but takes up a fraction of the space. It's brilliant for efficiency.
Okay, so it basically compresses the data. Why is that uniquely vulnerable?
Because of how quantum computers actually process information. A classical computer, even a supercomputer, solves problems linearly. If it wants to crack a password, it has to guess A, then B, then C, one at a time.
Right, sequentially.
Yeah. But a quantum computer uses qubits, which allow it to exist in multiple states simultaneously. It doesn't guess passwords one by one. It tests every single possible combination at the exact same moment.
Oh my God.
And the specific math used to compress those BLS signatures is highly susceptible to this simultaneous processing. A quantum computer can unravel that master signature instantly.
So what does this all mean? Is Q-Day basically the Y2K bug for crypto, except instead of a two-digit clock rolling over, it's a supercomputer brute forcing the very mathematical laws that protect all digital money?
Y2K is a helpful parallel for sure, but Q-Day is fundamentally more dangerous.
How so?
Well, Y2K was a formatting oversight. We knew exactly when it was going to happen. Midnight, January 1st, 2000. We had a firm deadline to fix it.
The clock was predictable.
Exactly. Q-Day represents a break in the actual laws of physics and mathematics as applied to computing. And the most terrifying part is that we don't have a calendar date.
We're flying blind.
We really are. We don't know exactly when a nation state or a massive tech conglomerate will successfully turn on a quantum computer capable of doing this. It could be 5 years from now, or it could happen on a random Tuesday next month.
And Sonic Labs noted that you can't just issue a quick software patch to fix this either. It requires tearing the blockchain down to the studs and redesigning the core protocol from scratch.
Which is exactly why Ripple is building a panic button right now. If you wait until Q-Day happens, your network is already dead.
Well, we've spent a lot of time discussing the bleeding edge of theoretical quantum futures, AI speed, and digital ledgers. But these technologies don't exist in a vacuum, right?
No, not at all.
They are currently colliding with very real systemic infrastructure challenges, specifically in emerging markets.
Yeah, and we see a perfect example of this collision in Nigeria right now. The Nigerian Communications Commission, the NCC, and the Central Bank of Nigeria have just forged a new direct partnership to target telecom-linked fraud.
So they're looking at the exact intersection where mobile phone networks meet digital payment platforms, right? Because that's basically where the criminals are finding the gaps.
Yeah, and this really grounds everything we just talked about. The sophisticated OAuth attacks and AI-accelerated malware aren't just corporate headaches for tech startups in Silicon Valley.
No, they have real-world consequences.
Exactly. These tactics filter down and manifest as direct, devastating threats to national financial infrastructure. When a nation relies heavily on mobile money, a vulnerability in the telecom network is a vulnerability in the central bank.
They're completely linked.
Yeah, the regulators are realizing that digital security and financial stability are completely inseparable now.
But while they are desperately trying to secure that digital infrastructure, there is a massive parallel debate happening about the actual limits of what technology can solve in the first place.
Oh, definitely.
A Nigerian marketing executive named Toby Odukoya posted a viral thread this week that completely reignited the conversation about healthcare costs across the country.
Yeah, and it's a debate that really exposes the deep tension between shiny tech-enabled solutions and the grim reality of systemic economic issues. We see constant announcements of incredible health tech startups launching in emerging markets,
Right.
apps offering telemedicine, AI-driven diagnostics, digital pharmacies.
Well, let me push back on the hype around those startups for a second. We've spent this entire deep dive talking about AI accelerating hackers and quantum computers fundamentally breaking encryption.
Right.
But looking at this Nigerian healthcare debate, are these tech solutions sometimes just slapping a digital Band-Aid on a systemic affordability problem that code simply cannot fix?
You've hit on the ultimate limitation of the tech industry, I think. Innovation is obviously necessary, but it is insufficient on its own.
Explain that.
Well, an app that connects a patient in a rural village to a top-tier specialist in the capital city is a genuine miracle of connectivity. But if that patient still cannot afford the physical medication, or if there are no paved roads to deliver that medication to their village, the technology fails.
The physical infrastructure isn't there.
Exactly. Tech can optimize the supply chain, and it can democratize access to information. But it cannot magically subsidize a physical reality where the baseline cost of care completely outstrips a population's purchasing power. A beautiful user interface cannot fix a broken foundation.
Wow. It really brings the entire picture into focus, doesn't it? We've covered massive ground today. We started with Tim Cook passing the baton at Apple and the aggressive ecosystem lock-in strategies of companies like Verizon.
Yeah, the walled gardens.
Right. And then we explored the dual-edged sword of artificial intelligence, how it can deliver the power of gods and consumer surplus while simultaneously supercharging supply chain hackers to move with terrifying machine speed velocity.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. We navigated the regulatory pivot at the SEC and the looming existential Y2K level threat of Q-Day threatening to break crypto entirely. And finally, we grounded all of this theory in the real-world clash between digital optimization and systemic physical infrastructure challenges.
It is an immense amount of systemic change happening all at once. And for you listening, it is crucial to take inventory of your own digital life.
Absolutely.
Think about where your data lives, the ecosystems you are locked into, and the physical security of the assets you hold. As AI agents automate cyber attacks and quantum developments quietly advance behind closed doors, the technological ground is shifting significantly faster than human regulations or reactive software patches can keep up.
Which leaves us with one final thought to mull over as you go about your day. If Mark Andreessen is right, and artificial intelligence truly delivers the power of gods to everyone at near zero cost.
Right.
And if the cryptographers at Sonic Labs are right, and Q-Day forces a complete panicked reset of every digital lock we rely on, will the massive tech ecosystems of our future be defined by how seamlessly they can connect us to the rest of the world?
That's the big question.
Or will their ultimate value simply be in how securely they can isolate us from everything else? When the underlying math of the internet finally breaks, maybe the only thing that will matter is how thick your walls are.
Really makes you think.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.